"You're trespassing," Colleen Durrett snapped, her voice edged with fake authority. The words felt routine to her now, weaponized HOA lingo masquerading as law. "If your wife takes one more step onto common use property, I'll escalate this to a hostile incident." Lana kept her stance steady. "This is our driveway." Colleen grinned like she already won. "Not under HOA Rule 14B. Approach zones count as visible incursion." The taser clicked. The crack of discharge hit before I could shout. She collapsed. Lana, police captain, combat-trained community speaker, dropped in the same spot where she used to help neighborhood kids fix their bike chains. They fired a taser at my wife, and they didn't know she's a police captain. If you've ever felt that surge of power when standing up to bullies, hit subscribe now. This showdown is about to become a masterclass in fighting back. Colleen's posture shifted fast, from smug to spin control. "She lunged," she muttered, not even looking at Lana twitching on the ground. I feared for my safety. I didn't argue. I didn't yell, because I've seen this before, not the violence, the paperwork that comes after. The HOA forms full of vague accusations, the doctored reports, the edited footage, the committee cover-ups. My name is James Rourke. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop, but I spent 15 years as a municipal code compliance officer. I've testified in hearings that shut down unsafe subdivisions. I've watched HOA boards dissolve under audit pressure. And most important, I built the safety review process Colleen violated the second she let that taser discharge near uninsulated dock wiring. That's not just civil misconduct. That's state-level criminal liability. They thought I was just another quiet homeowner. They forgot I designed the playbook. Lana didn't just fall. She folded into the mulch bed we planted after her father died. That strip of land, the only green zone in our front yard. She used to sit there every Sunday and drink coffee, even after the HOA fined us for non-compliant stone edging. We bought this house for the view of the lake, for the quiet, for the porch swing where she recovered after her third surgery. The same swing I installed alone while she was still in rehab. This place wasn't just a property. It was a promise. And now that promise was face down in the dirt. I slid down beside her. Her breathing was shallow but consistent. Her shoulder twitched where the probes had struck, and one hand clenched the air like she couldn't let go. She whispered, "Did she just really do it?" I nodded. She did. The neighbors didn't come outside. Most never do. Colleen's trained them well. Interference brings citations. But one vehicle stayed parked across the street. A black SUV, engine running, HOA security. New guy, mark something. I saw his dash cam light blinking. That was good. Let the lens record everything Colleen just did. Let it show. Lana didn't move. Let it show who fell and who stood smug after it happened. The ambulance came fast. Paramedics worked like clockwork, asked questions I didn't answer. They took Lana gently, and when I touched her hand one last time before they shut the door, she squeezed back, weak but conscious. Colleen was gone, fled, because even bullies know when they've crossed a line too far. But I wasn't angry. I was calm, quiet, methodical. The kind of calm you only learn after 2 decades of dealing with small-town corruption in a clean shirt and tie. Because this wasn't about a taser. This was about a dock Colleen built without a permit, a lighting system installed by her cousin with no license, and now a use-of-force incident she couldn't bury without implicating the HOA's private security funding. I wasn't going to sue her. I was going to dismantle her. Where are you watching from? Because this isn't just a violation. This is where their rules break under mine. They posted the violation notice before the sun came up, taped it crooked to our mailbox like a scarlet letter. The paper flapped in the wind, HOA letterhead, catching the morning light as if it were something official. It wasn't. I could tell by the font alignment. Colleen had typed this herself. Civil trespass, suspension of community privileges. Effective immediately. No legal citation, no bylaw reference, just a threat wrapped in uppercase letters. By noon, the notice had already made its way onto the community app. Colleen posted it as an incident update, along with a blurry still from the taser clip. Not the part where she fired. The moment right after, cropped to make Lana look aggressive, her posture mid-fall, mouth open like she'd shouted. The narrative practically wrote itself. Hostile spouse of disgruntled homeowner, confronts board, forces security escalation. There was a second clip. I'd bet on it, a better angle. But that wasn't what she shared. That's the thing with HOA politics. Optics matter more than truth, and Colleen knew how to bend a lens. I didn't comment. I didn't respond. I took screenshots, backed up the post, and filed a silent complaint with the city. Not about the taser, not yet. I submitted a violation of power draw codes on the HOA's dock lighting system. Let her think I was licking wounds. Let her think she still had the narrative. But she didn't. Lana stayed overnight at the hospital for cardiac observation. They gave her fluids, monitored her vitals, and did their best not to say the word trauma. She wouldn't let them admit it. "I've been through worse," she told them. "This won't define me." But it defined something. When she looked at me through that oxygen mask, there was no anger, only resolve, like she knew this wasn't just about her anymore. The Silver Pines Lakeside community had become something else, an experiment in fear management. I'd seen it happen in other neighborhoods, boards that ran like juntas, using fines and bylaws like shackles. But Silver Pines was supposed to be different. It was marketed as restorative, private docks, quiet lake paths, monthly concerts in the pavilion, a place for officers, nurses, teachers, and retirees. Colleen turned it into a lab for control. The proof was everywhere. Just last week, our neighbor David got fined for placing a wooden duck on his porch. Unapproved exterior decor. The week before that, a couple 3 doors down got hit with a $250 violation for a flag that wasn't properly centered. And yet, Colleen's cousin had built an entire extension on the community dock without ever filing a modification permit. I knew that because I'd flagged it, quietly, months ago, an anonymous city tip. And I'd watched Colleen's retaliation come in waves ever since. First the random lawn inspections, then the community compliance meetings scheduled during work hours, and now, this. That taser wasn't just about asserting dominance. It was a message: fall in line or fall on the ground. I didn't respond with rage. I responded with rhythm. Lana came home the next evening. She didn't want fanfare, didn't want neighbors bringing casseroles or pity glances. She just sat on the porch, hand wrapped around a chipped mug, and stared across the lake at the half-finished platform extension, glowing with warm LED strips. I sat beside her and said nothing. There was nothing to say, until she asked, "You still have that drone inspection rig?" I nodded. "Why?" She gestured toward the dock. "That conduit cover's not weather sealed, and those wires are exposed. Looks like a fire risk to me." That's when I knew she was in. She wouldn't let this get buried, not because of pride, because of precedent. We weren't just going to clear our names. We were going to crack this thing wide open. And while the rest of the neighborhood kept its head down, I knew some of them were watching. I saw it in the man walking his dog who slowed near our house but didn't wave, in the teenage girl who paused near the HOA board and took a photo when she thought no one was looking. They felt it, the tension, the silent rules breaking. And, if I was right, at least one of them had caught it all on camera. He was parked in the usual spot, angled just far enough to avoid suspicion, just close enough for a clear view of our driveway. The black SUV hadn't moved in over 30 minutes. Engine off, dash cam still blinking. I stepped out onto the porch with an empty coffee mug and watched the man inside pretend he didn't see me. Mark Reyes. He was new, hired 2 weeks ago after the HOA quietly cut ties with the previous security firm. Rumor was Colleen had wanted someone less rigid about protocol. I'd seen his resume when it came through the HOA bulletin, former Marine Corps. Logistics, not infantry, mid-30s, solid build, always dressed like he was. Just returning from a training manual, boots polished, sleeves tight. He looked up finally, just a flick of the eyes through tinted glass, then back to whatever was on his clipboard, but his fingers drummed, not rhythmically, nervously. I crossed the lawn, slow, deliberate. Mark rolled the window halfway. "Afternoon? You got the footage from yesterday?" He hesitated, blinked hard once. "I submit everything to Colleen." That wasn't the question. His lips parted like he wanted to say something. Maybe the truth, maybe a lie. But what came out was neither. Just silence. I leaned in closer, just enough to lower my voice. "You saw what she did." "I wasn't instructed to intervene," he muttered. "But you recorded it?" He nodded. "Barely." His hand gripped the steering wheel tight, knuckles pale against sun-darkened skin. A bead of sweat trailed down his temple, even though the AC was running. He was cracking, not publicly, not where Colleen could see. But something about watching Lana hit the ground must have stuck to his conscience like oil on a boot. "You know what I used to do?" I asked him. He didn't answer, but his eyes flicked to mine again. "I wrote the visual inspection standard for neighborhood lighting compliance. That doc, Colleen's pride and joy. I built the violation model it breaks." He shifted in his seat. A small movement, but his leg bounced once, just once, then still. "I'm not asking you to break contract," I said. "I'm asking you to tell the truth when this goes public." He didn't respond, not with words. But the next morning, an envelope appeared on our porch. No name, just sealed in brown paper, tucked beneath a potted succulent. Inside was a USB drive and a sticky note. I didn't sign up to cover crimes. I didn't open it right away, not because I was afraid of what I'd see, but because I already knew. The frame, the angle, the timestamp. Mark had been recording before Colleen raised her voice, before Lana said a single word. The footage would show the truth, but it wasn't just what Mark gave me that mattered. It was when. Later that afternoon, I spotted him at the pavilion, not patrolling, sitting, alone, shoulders hunched, phone dark in his hand, eyes locked on the lake. He looked cornered, not by me, by his own job. I watched as Colleen arrived 10 minutes later. They spoke in hushed tones. Her gestures were sharp, clipped. His posture stayed stiff. No nods, no smile. She jabbed a finger toward our house. Mark didn't flinch. Then she handed him a file. Thick, manila. And he didn't take it, just stared. That's when I realized he wasn't just conflicted. He was planning his exit. Back at home, Lana watched from the window. "Think he'll flip?" "He already has," I said. "What makes you so sure?" I held up the note. "Because he signed it. We didn't talk after that. We didn't have to. The lines were drawn. Colleen was burning bridges faster than she could build lies. And Mark Reyes, he was already halfway across the fire. Colleen didn't waste time. Less than 24 hours after Mark dropped the footage, a new notice was posted on our community board, bright red header, Emergency HOA Policy Revision. Rule 27, A. Unruly conduct or language directed at HOA staff or contracted personnel may result in immediate suspension of all community access and the initiation of civil trespass procedures. There it was, her next move, retroactive rule writing. Craft a policy, then use it to justify the past. She wanted to make Lana the aggressor on paper, even if the footage showed otherwise. And the part that made it even slicker, she dated the rule 2 weeks prior. I'd seen tactics like this when I worked code enforcement. Backdate a policy, pretend it's always been there, and dare anyone to prove otherwise. Most don't, most fold. But Colleen forgot I made a career out of spotting forged trail markers. I went straight to the county's ordinance repository that morning. HOA policy updates had to be filed for legal recognition, especially anything involving property access or civil rights restrictions. Silver Pine's last recorded rule update was from 5 months ago. Nothing new had been filed since, which meant this rule was, in every legal sense, a fabrication. But that didn't stop her from enforcing it. The community pool key card stopped working first, then our pavilion gate code, then a note from the HOA mailbox. Due to continued disruptive behavior by household residents, all shared amenities are hereby off-limits pending board review. No review date, no appeal process, just a lockout. Lana didn't react. She simply folded the note and placed it under the coffee pot. "Let her overreach," she said. "Every new restriction makes her look guiltier." She wasn't wrong, but what Colleen lacked in legal standing, she made up for in manipulation. 3 neighbors stopped waving. The woman across the street, the one who used to bring over extra lemons from her garden, now crossed to the other sidewalk without looking up. Colleen was winning the perception game, for now, so I shifted the terrain. That night, while Lana rested, I pulled up the HOA's electrical permit history. It wasn't public-facing, but I still had access to a legacy database from my compliance days. It showed every filed permit tied to Silver Pines. and the last electrical permit on file 4 years ago for holiday lighting. No mention of the dock's recent upgrades, no approval for high voltage systems, no inspections logged for underwater conduit or ambient walkway strips. In other words, Colleen installed an entire dock lighting grid on community property without notifying the city, and she'd powered it using rerouted feeds from pavilion junction boxes. That wasn't just illegal, it was dangerous, especially considering those junction boxes were adjacent to the lake, where conductivity risks multiply, and any voltage irregularity could turn a simple rainstorm into a death trap. I saved screenshots, annotated the blueprint overlays, matched it against photos I'd taken last year when the dock expansion began. Same wire routes, same brake lines. And I hadn't even brought out the drone yet. As I logged each violation, I could feel the edges of the case sharpening. This wasn't about the taser anymore. That was the trigger, yes. But what it revealed underneath? Rot. Colleen had operated unchecked for too long, emboldened by silence and wrapped in authority she never legally possessed. But now she'd left fingerprints on policies, wires, and permits. All I had to do was connect them. The next day, the HOA bulletin featured a new headline: Unauthorized surveillance warning. All drone activity prohibited. She was trying to get ahead of me, block my methods, shut the door before I reached the latch. But it was already too late. The system she rigged was already in violation, and I wasn't some weekend warrior with a drone. I was the guy who trained the inspectors now tasked with tearing it down. The wind was calmer than usual that morning, just enough to rustle the lake's edge, not enough to cause vibration on the drone. I launched it from the upper deck of the boathouse, outside of HOA grounds, legally uncontestable, and angled it toward the dock. I didn't need high-altitude shots. I needed the angles no inspector on foot could safely get. Under rails, power entry points. The spot where the extension met the original structure, where Colleen's cousin had run the conduit through unsealed housing. It took less than 5 minutes to confirm everything I suspected. Exposed wire runs along metal bracing, no weatherproofing, no GFCI shutoff box anywhere in sight. Junction boxes without tamper seals. And worst of all, a split feed. 2 sets of power lines merged into a single conduit bundle, which looped behind the pavilion wall. That wasn't just amateur work. That was criminal negligence. I captured everything: still frames, video sweep, FLIR, overlay for heat mapping. And then I scanned outward, toward the little green transformer box that sat hidden behind the rose trellis near the pavilion. City property. Should have had a utility tag. It didn't. Colleen wasn't just stealing power. She was doing it from a live municipal source. I flew the drone back and landed it quietly on its pad. Lana stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the lake. "What's it look like?" she asked. "Like a lawsuit waiting to happen." She nodded once. No smile, just the silent kind of approval we'd shared for years, back when she'd bring me permit violation cases from downtown that no one wanted to touch. But even those hadn't involved tasers and buried wires. I transferred the footage to my laptop, organized the timestamps, and began drafting the complaint. I knew which. Department to contact, building and safety first, then municipal utilities. But I also knew not to send it all at once. A flood triggers defenses. A trickle gets reviewed. So I broke it into 3 parts. 1, unpermitted structural modifications. 2, unsafe electrical work. And 3, illegal power rerouting. Each piece supported the others, but alone, they'd pass standard intake filters. Together, they'd force cross-department coordination and an automatic inspection trigger. That's how you take down a system like Colleen's. Not by screaming about fairness, by making the process turn inward and eat its own tail. Just as I was uploading the first batch, a shadow passed over the window. Someone was standing at the edge of our driveway, right at the boundary line. It was one of the board members, Jacob Vance, HOA treasurer. He didn't say anything, just stared at our door for a long minute, then slid a folded paper through the mailbox and walked away. I waited until he was down the block before I opened it. It wasn't a violation notice. It was a memo, handwritten. Colleen's pulling financials for a safety audit of the dock. Said she'll backdate the invoices if needed. I can't stop her. Just thought you should know, no signature. But I recognized the handwriting. I'd seen Jacob make ledger notes during last year's community budget meeting, precise block caps, always used a blue pen. She was trying to manufacture justification, retrofit the narrative so that the dock upgrades looked city compliant and board approved. She wanted to bury the truth beneath new paper. But her mistake was thinking this was still about policies. This was about liability. If someone slipped on that dock during a storm, if a child touched that unsealed conduit, if any part of the system overloaded, the HOA wouldn't just be fined, they'd be sued into oblivion. And the insurance companies, they'd walk away. That's when I understood the angle. Colleen wasn't trying to cover up a power grab. She was protecting her house. She lived 3 doors from the pavilion. If the board lost its insurance, if lawsuits started stacking, she'd be personally liable for every form she'd falsified. This wasn't confidence. It was desperation dressed as control, and desperation always leaves cracks. By nightfall, the 2nd and 3rd complaints were filed, quiet, precise, backed with evidence and citations tied to city code. And somewhere between the last upload and the final email, I stopped thinking of this as revenge. It was containment. She wanted power. Now she was sitting on a live wire. I woke up to the sound of metal scraping pavement. When I stepped onto the porch, 2 HOA maintenance workers were welding a chain link gate across the walking path that led to the pavilion. No signage, no warning, just a barrier, cutting our side of the neighborhood off from shared space. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. Colleen was cornering us physically now, not just procedurally. "Safety upgrade," one of them muttered when I got close. He didn't look me in the eye. "Did this go through vote?" I asked. "Don't know. We were just told to install it." I didn't push further. They were pawns in this, not players. Lana stood behind me, hair still damp from the shower, her badge case on the porch rail. She hadn't worn it in days, not since the suspension letter landed, not since the department opened its preliminary conduct review based on Colleen's incident report. "I should go down there," she said. "Let me handle it," I told her. "You're not the one they're trying to erase." That hit harder than I wanted it to. She wasn't wrong. Every HOA action, every policy update, every smirking memo was aimed at making her look unstable, aggressive, undeserving of her badge. And if the department bought it, she'd lose everything she built. This wasn't just about a dock, not anymore. It was about erasure. I turned my attention back to the gate. It wasn't anchored to concrete, just bolted into soil, temporary, meant to intimidate. I snapped a few photos, logged the timestamp. Then I walked the long way around the block, cutting through city-owned easement space to reach the opposite side of the pavilion. No security, no signage, just a quiet path of benches and swaying reeds that led straight to the lakefront structure I'd documented from above. The pavilion looked untouched, but as I circled around, I saw a ladder tucked against the side and a maintenance hatch open near the transformer box. She was already trying to cover it. New conduit had been threaded through plastic shielding, badly installed, barely sealed. You could still see the old wiring underneath, blackened at the ends where splices had overheated, and no new permit tags, no inspection clearance posted, just fast work under pressure. I photographed everything. Back home, Lana was reviewing the footage Mark had dropped off. She paused the dash cam clip at the exact frame where Colleen drew the taser. "You see this?" she said. "Yeah." Her finger's already on the trigger. No verbal warning, no escalation cue. That makes it an offensive deployment, not defensive. That changes the liability profile. I nodded. "We're close. I just need one more angle on the pavilion system." "I can get it." I looked up. "No, you're not even cleared to..." "I don't need clearance to walk the lake. I'm a resident. They haven't banned me from the easement path yet." She stood, quiet but steady. "Let them try." She went out the side gate, cut through the park like I had. I watched from the upstairs window as she moved around the pavilion, camera in hand, posture steady. She took photos, walked the perimeter, even knelt beside the wiring port with her flashlight. It wasn't revenge I saw in her then. It was duty. Even suspended, even wounded she was. Still the officer who refused to look away from risk. And this dock, this system of lies built over public danger, was the worst kind of risk. One cloaked in policy. One wrapped in HOA authority. One neighbor would ignore until someone got hurt. When she came back, she placed the photos on the table beside mine. "Now we have every angle," she said. I looked at the spread. The violations were irrefutable. 3 departments would be forced to respond, insurance auditors would be pulled, city inspectors would be dispatched. It was no longer just about exposure, it was about consequence. And the moment I hit submit on the official complaint bundle, cross-referenced, time-stamped, geotagged, it became real. Lana leaned in. "Now we wait," I shook my head. "Now we escalate." The envelope came just after dusk. No knock, no doorbell. Just a soft thunk against the wood of the front porch. By the time I opened the door, the SUV was already at the end of the street, taillights fading into the cul-de-sac curve. It was Mark Reyes. I didn't need a name on the package. The seal was his style, neat, clean, military folded. Inside was a flash drive and a single sheet of paper. No signature, just 5 words printed in block letters. She doctored the security logs. I slipped the flash drive into the laptop and braced myself. The first video was what I expected. The raw, full-frame dash cam footage from the Taser incident. It was clean. From the moment Lana stepped out of our gate to the moment she dropped, there was no aggressive movement, no raised voice, no threat. Just Colleen yelling over her, twisting words, and then firing. But the second file? This was new. It was a screen recording of the HOA's internal security management portal. Colleen's profile was logged in, time-stamped, and I watched the mouse pointer scroll to the incident footage and trim the first 15 seconds before exporting the version that got posted on the community app. The original showed Lana standing still, silent. The edited version started mid-motion, right as Lana turned her shoulder. It was manufactured aggression, a legal frame job, and now I had proof. I sank into the chair for a minute, the kind of silence that doesn't feel victorious, just heavy. Not because I was unsure of what came next, but because now I had everything I needed to destroy the narrative, and Mark had risked everything to give it to me. I grabbed my phone and sent a single message to the number he'd scribbled months ago when he first introduced himself. "You sure you're ready for this?" No response, until 15 minutes later. "I already quit. HOA doesn't know yet. I'm done covering for her. I read it twice." Mark Reyes was officially out, and that meant we weren't alone anymore. I printed the screen captures from the video, one showing Colleen's login, another showing the frame cut. I placed them next to the city permit violations on my table. A timeline was forming, a chain of intent, false policies, edited footage, unlicensed electrical work, and a use of force incident designed to silence and punish. Lana stood in the hallway, watching me. "That's enough to open a tampering investigation," she said quietly. "I know. James, if this goes public, if the department sees all of this together, she gets suspended, maybe even arrested." "No, I meant me." She took a breath, steadying. "They'll say I orchestrated this, that I used you to retaliate. You didn't. But they'll say it." I nodded slowly. "Then we make sure it's not just your name on the complaint." She tilted her head. "You're going public?" "Not yet. But I am copying 3 city departments, the county compliance office, and the HOA's liability insurer. And Mark, if he wants to attach his name, it'll help. If he doesn't, I still have the metadata." She nodded, said nothing more. We were past the stage of doubt. The next morning, I drove to a coffee shop 10 miles outside of Silver Pines, off HOA radar. Mark was waiting, already seated near the back, eyes scanning exits like muscle memory. He didn't speak right away, just slid over a folder. "Those are the call logs." Colleen told the dispatcher I was in fear for my safety. She used my name. I never said that. I never filed a report. "You ready to testify?" His jaw clenched. "If it comes to that, you'll lose your contract, maybe your reputation." He let out a hollow laugh. "I'd rather be jobless than gutless." We shook hands, firm, final. As I drove home, the clouds rolled in thick over the lake. A storm was coming, literally and otherwise. But for the first time since Lana hit the ground, I didn't feel cornered. I felt armed. By noon, the final package was ready. Not just emails, not just footage. A full chain of violations cross-linked with timestamps, permit records, and power grid data. Everything filed neatly in separate folders on 2 identical flash drives, one for the city's building and safety department, the other for municipal utilities. I didn't rush. Each section had to be bulletproof. No room for ambiguity. I knew the audit team would dissect every frame, every claim. Colleen would scream, "character assassination," the moment it hit her inbox. But she couldn't fight hard data. Lana sat across from me at the kitchen table, flipping through a printed list of the HOA's electrical vendors. "This one here," she said, tapping a name halfway down. "Gavin Renth, Colleen's cousin. He's not even licensed, I already knew." His name appeared on 3 invoices buried in the HOA's quarterly maintenance logs. Logs Mark had quietly emailed from his admin access before he quit. "He's a handyman," I said. "Drywall and gutters, no electrical certification, but she listed him under special contractor privileges." Lana's voice dropped. "You think the city will move on it?" "They'll have to. As soon as we submit, they're on the hook for public safety. If they ignore it and someone gets hurt, it's their liability." She nodded, but I saw it in her eyes. The weight. She wasn't thinking about lawsuits or citations. She was thinking about the kid who rode his scooter past the pavilion every evening, the one who liked to hang his feet over the dock's edge. "Let's finish this," I said. We drove downtown separately. I went to the Permit Oversight Division. Lana headed to Utilities Compliance with her copy of the footage and crossfield inspection requests. We didn't need to say it aloud, but we both understood. Separate routes made it harder for the HOA to claim coordination or bias. The woman behind the counter at Building and Safety scanned the complaint folder with tired eyes until she saw the conduit photos. Her brows lifted. "Where was this taken?" she asked. "Silver Pines Lakeside," I said. "Pavilion dock extension. HOA installed without permit. It's live and tied into a municipal transformer." She tapped her keyboard, scrolled through the city registry, and paused. "We don't have anything filed for electrical work in that development for 4 years. "Exactly." She narrowed her eyes. "You said this is HOA property?" "Yes, and the installation's directly adjacent to public easement. If it malfunctions, it puts pedestrians at risk. There's no cutoff switch, no secondary ground loop." Her expression changed, no longer bureaucratic. Now it was alert. "We'll escalate this," she said. "You might get a call from an inspector." Happy to walk them through it. Back home, I uploaded everything to cloud backups. Then I printed hard copies, one for my records, one sealed in an envelope I'd give to Mark if things got messy, just in case. By evening, I got the first ping, a read receipt from the city auditor's inbox, then a second, then a third. Each one marked the beginning of a paper trail that Colleen couldn't outrun. From here on, the weight of due process was no longer mine to carry. I stepped out onto the porch, watching the street. No maintenance trucks, no board members walking their dogs. But across the way, Jacob Vance, the HOA treasurer, stood outside his garage with the door halfway open. His eyes met mine for a moment. No words. Then he nodded. Just once. The kind of nod that said, "I know what you're doing, and I won't stop you." Inside, Lana was laying out new photos across the kitchen island, comparing thermal readings from the drone footage with visual overlays. Her suspension still hung in the air like smog, but I could see it. She was standing straighter now, focused. She wasn't waiting for reinstatement anymore. She was working a case, and for once it wasn't hers alone. We weren't the quiet ones on the corner anymore. We were the fuse, and the system Colleen built. It was already fraying at the edges. The first knock came just after 8 a.m. It wasn't forceful, more procedural than aggressive, but it still made my stomach knot. I opened the door to a man in a Navy City-issued windbreaker, badge clipped at his chest. "James Rourke?" he asked. "That's me. Inspector Halverson. Building and Safety." He glanced at his clipboard. "Got flagged for priority review. Dockside structure, potential electrical hazard." He didn't need an invitation. Once I confirmed my identity and address matched the complainant's on record, he stepped past me like clockwork, calm, professional, no wasted movement. "What you submitted was thorough," he said, scanning the folder I handed him. Someone knew exactly what to highlight. 15 years in code compliance, I replied. He whistled low. "Well then, let's go take a look." We cut through the city easement path, still open, still public. and reached the pavilion in less than 5 minutes. The morning fog hadn't lifted from the lake yet, but it gave the scene a certain clarity. The wires were still exposed. The plastic shielding was already peeling where it met the bracket. Halverson crouched beside the panel and pulled on a pair of gloves. No tags, no GFCI, no cover plate. And this... He tapped a corroded junction with his pen. This is a code violation in every zip code on the map. He photographed everything, measurements, angles, heat readings with a handheld scanner. He even took a water sample from the lake edge, checking for trace conductivity from seepage. By the time he was done, his expression had shifted from neutral to something closer to disbelief. "Your complaint's going straight to escalation," he said. "We'll issue a stop work order within the hour. They'll be required to de-energize the structure and file retroactive permits, if we even allow it to remain standing. What about enforcement? Depends how hard they fight it, but if power's still live by sundown, we're talking shutdown order, possible penalties, civil and insurance, maybe even criminal negligence if anyone's injured." He paused, like he wanted to ask the question everyone else had been avoiding. How'd this get past them? I gave a tight smile. It didn't. They buried it. He nodded once, then made the call right there in front of me. "Yeah, it's live. Pavilion Dock, Silver Pines Lakeside. No permit, no shutoff, no tag. Full violation. Issue the red slip." The words felt heavier than I expected. He left after that, paperwork in hand, warning signs already printed. Said the city would be posting an official notice on the pavilion entrance by midday. I thanked him and returned home, where Lana was already standing at the window with her phone in hand. "They just posted something," she said, eyes narrowed. "Colleen's calling for an emergency community safety meeting tonight. 7 p.m. Pavilion. Says there's been false reporting, and she intends to clarify with the board present." "She's trying to get ahead of the red slip," I muttered. "Public theater," Lana agreed. "She's hoping if she spins the story fast enough, no one will notice the city signs going up." I checked my inbox. Sure enough, a copy of the official stop work notice had already hit. Effective immediately. Penalties pending. I forwarded it to Mark with a single line. "Tonight's her final bluff." Then I sent it to Jacob Vance. No response from either, but I didn't need confirmation. By the time the sun dipped below the lake line, the city's bright orange stop work, unsafe site placard was taped to the entrance of the pavilion. High voltage warnings, municipal seals, unignorable, except apparently by Colleen, because at 6:45 p.m. she stood at the dock gate with a cordless microphone, a folding table, and the HOA seal pinned to her blouse. A crowd gathered, maybe 30 people, curious, tense, confused. Lana stood beside me at the edge of the easement path, arms crossed. "She's actually going through with it." "She has no choice," I said. "She either owns the lies or buries them under a spectacle." We didn't move, not yet. Let her speak. Let her spin. Because when it was our turn, we weren't bringing opinions. We were bringing evidence. Colleen stood like she was untouchable, shoulders squared, mic gripped in one hand, HOA policy binder in the other. The crowd spread unevenly around the pavilion lawn, murmuring beneath the soft hum of the lake breeze. I scanned the faces. Neighbors who'd stopped making eye contact. A few who still waved, but kept their voices low. And then those like Jacob Vance, treasurer, cautious by design, lingering at the edges, pretending neutrality while the ground shifted under his feet. "This community," Colleen began, voice smooth with fake composure, "has been the subject of targeted misinformation, and it ends tonight." She didn't mention the placard, didn't acknowledge the bright orange warning taped to the pavilion rail just feet behind her. The city's stop work, unsafe site order flapped in the wind like a flag no one wanted to salute. "I've served as your HOA president for 6 years, she continued, "and in that time, we've improved property values, enhanced security, and expanded amenities. But certain individuals," her eyes flicked to me just long enough, "have chosen to weaponize bureaucracy for personal vendettas." The crowd shifted. A woman near the front raised her hand. "Is it true the city shut the dock down?" Colleen smiled tightly. "We're in contact with building and safety to clarify a clerical error." I stepped forward. No mic, no theatrics, just a folder in my hand. Then you won't mind if I read the violation report aloud, I said. The murmurs stilled. Colleen's eyes narrowed. This is an HOA meeting. This is city property, I cut in. Easement path and all. Your use of this space is now under municipal review, which means any claim made here is part of a public record. I handed copies of the stop work order to 2 residents near the front. They passed them back in silence. I watched eyes move down the page, watched expressions change. Unpermitted electrical installations, unsafe junctions, no GFCI, unauthorized rerouting of public transformer current. And the system's still hot, I said. They're shutting it down tonight. If it isn't de-energized, fines start at $5,000 per day. Colleen's voice cracked the surface again. That's not been confirmed. These accusations, I raised my hand and turned to the crowd. This isn't about accusations. It's about evidence. I pulled the small projector from my bag and pointed it at the back of the pavilion wall, wide enough to work as a screen. Click. Mark's dash cam footage filled the wall. Lana's voice played softly. My voice. Colleen's orders. The crack of the taser. No edits. Then the screen recording of Colleen trimming the video. Metadata on display. Her login, her cursor, her timestamp manipulation. She stepped forward, hand raised, voice rising. This is doctored. I won't allow. You already allowed it, I said. You posted the edited clip yourself. Do we need to play the phone call where you told Mark to file a false report under his name? Silence. Colleen's mouth stayed open, frozen in the moment between outrage and collapse. That's when Mark stepped into the light. He hadn't spoken a word all evening, just stood near the back, hood pulled low. But now he took off his cap, squared his shoulders, and said, clear enough for everyone to hear, I was ordered to lie. I didn't. And just like that, the final pin dropped. No shouting, no chaos, just gravity. Jacob Vance turned and walked away. Another board member followed, and the rest, they stayed, they listened. Lana stepped up beside me, calm as ever. The police report will be updated to reflect the full footage, she said, and my department's internal affairs unit has been notified. The projector clicked off. No one applauded, but no one argued either. Colleen stood alone now, binder hanging limp at her side, the weight of her choices dragging down what little authority she had left. We didn't wait for her to speak again, because she'd already said enough. She didn't resign on stage. Colleen just froze there, binder clutched like a life raft, eyes darting between the crowd and the projector screen, as if disbelief could will the evidence away. But even silence has an expiration date. It was Jacob who broke it. He returned from the parking lot 10 minutes later, not with words, but with emotion. I move for an immediate emergency vote of no confidence in President Colleen Durrett, he said, loud enough for the gathered homeowners to hear. Gasps rippled through the group. A few people turned toward one another, whispering. Others, those who'd always suspected but never said, simply nodded. Colleen tried to speak. This is not proper procedure. You can't. We can, Jacob said calmly, producing a printed copy of the HOA bylaws from a manila folder. Page 14, Section B. In cases of documented criminal conduct, the board may initiate an immediate vote for removal, requiring only a simple majority. Her face drained of color. But you're the treasurer, she said, desperate now. You're supposed to. I'm supposed to protect this community, he cut her off. And in that moment, I saw the shift. He wasn't protecting her anymore. The crowd, once hesitant, once gripped by the fear of fines and anonymous citations, now stood rooted in something else, clarity. Residents who'd never raised their voices were now speaking in murmurs, confirming what they had all witnessed. The vote happened right there, old school, hands raised in the air, 70% majority. Colleen turned away, binder still clutched, but no one followed her. No one stopped Jacob when he walked to the mic she'd left behind and addressed the group. This board has failed to act in good faith, he said. Effective immediately, I'm contacting legal counsel to begin compliance with the city's investigation. The HOA will fully cooperate with building and safety, utilities, and insurance. And we will not tolerate retaliatory enforcement or suppression of evidence going forward. He paused. I'm sorry it took this long. Lana and I stood at the edge of the crowd. I could feel her exhale next to me. Not relief, not victory, just release. We didn't linger for the cleanup. We didn't need to see Colleen retreat to her house or hear the final whispers dissolve into neighborhood chatter. The moment had landed. On the way home, the sky cracked open with the first rumble of a storm. We made it to the porch just before the rain started. Lana took off her jacket, shook it once, and hung it over the porch rail. "I'm filing my reinstatement paperwork tomorrow," she said. "You should." She didn't smile. Didn't need to. Inside, I printed the final report package, red-stamped by the city, now containing official inspection notes and a notice of compliance failure. Then I tucked it into the drawer with the others, not out of sentiment, but because it was done. The drone, the footage, the reports, the testimonies, they all served their purpose. Now the story belonged to the city, to the board, to the residents who finally looked up from their lawns. I stepped outside again as the rain thickened, the drops tapping against the tin gutter like a heartbeat. The porch swing creaked slightly in the wind. That swing, Lana's favorite place. The one they'd cited us for, claiming it extended 3 inches into the community's visual uniformity zone. The same swing I'd nearly taken down. I sat in it now, let it rock. Across the street, porch lights flicked on, one by one. For the first time in weeks, no one turned them off when they saw me watching. Mark texted just after 9. "Saw the vote. She's done." "You did it?" I typed a reply, then deleted it. This wasn't mine. It belonged to everyone who showed up, who raised their hands, who finally stopped pretending everything was fine. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just votes. The city's removal crew arrived 3 days later. 2 white trucks, municipal logos on the sides, quiet workers in reflective vests carrying bolt cutters and plastic crates. No ceremony, no warnings. Just a quiet morning operation beneath a pale sky as the orange stop work sign was peeled down and replaced with a more permanent posting. Structure closed, permit violation, electrical decommissioning order in effect. They stripped out the illegal wiring first. Coils of blackened conduit coiled like snakes in their bins. Junction boxes removed, tamper-sealed meters installed. The dock was no longer a hazard, it was a husk. I watched it all from the edge of the easement trail. A few neighbors joined, standing back, arms folded, silent. No one smiled. Even those who voted against Colleen didn't seem to celebrate. They just watched, like the neighborhood had held its breath too long and was only now remembering how to breathe. Mark stood beside me, arms crossed. "She's gone," he said. I stopped by to pick up the rest of my gear. Her porch is empty, house dark. Looks like she packed up in the night. I didn't ask where she went. Didn't care. Justice wasn't exile. It was exposure. The rest handled itself. That afternoon, the new interim board called its first open session. This time, it wasn't behind closed doors. They held it in the pavilion's common room, doors wide open, chairs arranged in a circle, microphones left unused. Lana and I didn't speak. We just listened. Jacob introduced proposals. Third-party audit of HOA funds, creation of a public incident review committee, mandatory quarterly transparency reports. A few neighbors offered support, a few offered criticism, but no one walked out. That was victory enough. Afterward, Lana and I walked the trail down to the edge of the lake. The chain barrier was gone. The new sign in front of the pavilion read, "Closed for repairs. Future community reuse under review." "Think they'll tear it down?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they'll rebuild it." Right this time, she didn't answer right away. Just stepped closer to the wooden bench beneath the willow tree, the one her father had donated, the one they almost removed during Colleen's uniformity upgrades. She ran her hand over the backrest, tracing his initials. "This place almost forgot what it was," she said. "But it remembered," I replied. And maybe so, had we. Back home, Lana unpacked her badge from the drawer. No ceremony, just polished the clasp and set it on the counter. Her suspension had been dropped that morning, all allegations voided. Official notice from Internal Affairs, case closed, no further action. She was reinstated effective Monday. I didn't ask if she planned to return. I didn't need to. That night, we sat on the porch swing, still 3 inches into the so-called violation zone. But no one would be citing us anymore. No one would be citing anyone. The sky turned violet. Porch lights flicked on across the street again. And for the first time in a long time, we weren't watched. We were seen. I close my eyes and let the swing rock slow beneath us, not as escape, but as peace earned. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from. This isn't just about one fight. It's about knowing you're not alone when the rules stop making sense.